I'd like to record and then turn it off for the Q&A, just so we can have a very open, honest question and answer period. But I would like people to be able to watch this video if they can't attend today. And so that's just a little preview. The slides for today are there aren't too many of them. I'm just going to give an overview of open access. The main topic are sort of updates on APCs and the latest different funding models and that. But that is all just contextual, really, to introduce everybody to our support that Adelphi offers, this specifically, and then hopefully we'll have a robust Q&A, and those of you who are here can ask about your specific journals or disciplines. So I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Chris Barnes. Welcome to Faculty Funding for Open Access Publishing. I am joined this morning by Dr. Andie Ward, Vice Provost for Research and Libraries, and Sandra Urban, Chair of University Libraries. I am Digital Publishing Librarian and Assistant Professor, and happy Open Access Week 2025. This is the last day of Open Access Week, a time each year we celebrate and advocate for open access publishing and Creative Commons licensing. And so I always try to offer a workshop like this during Open Access Week that allows for faculty to ask very straightforward questions about their own research, in addition to learning about the latest developments on the scene. So if there are any, at the end for questions, Andie and Sandy and I will all be available, obviously, to field them. If you have any questions while I'm presenting, please feel free to unmute or raise your hand. Actually, unmute, because I doubt I'll see you. With that, I will go ahead and get started. Okay, so here's the agenda that I've already briefly described. First, we're just going to look at some terminology, the different paths that are available for open access. And those are, I've sort of given up resisting these because the industry has just sort of stuck to these labels. And so we're going to go with them. But it's really important for you to understand each one. So diamond is, as we'll get to that in a minute. Then after that, we'll look at the more interesting stuff, the trends in open access and scholarly publishing. And the 4 points that I want to make there are regarding predatory journals, changing APC prices and sort of new kinds of charges that are on the scene now. Some of the research resistance to both of those, predatory journals and money grabs on the part of publishers, and then the increased use of preprints and IRs as a potential remedy for those increasing prices. And then lastly, but most importantly, we'll be looking at the options for Adelphi faculty in terms of APC funding, the library open access agreements, and utilizing scholarly works, our institutional repository, to make your work open access and available online. And so first, this is just a review of some of the terminology for the different paths that are available to making your work open access. We usually talk about journals, but these terms could technically, I think, apply to most others as well. But for the context of this, we'll be specifically talking about journals and APCs. So any diamond journal or diamond open access program means that it is first and foremost fully open. You're never going to have to pay for any access to anything. But there's also no cost to publish, and that's what makes them diamond. So there's no cost to read, no cost to publish. You might say, well, where do they actually get the money? To do that, they keep costs extremely low, and they utilize a combination of grant funding, institutional and university and library budgets, and a lot of the money that's already in the system is being rerouted to support these journals. But again, it's all about keeping costs extremely low so that the sponsorship can stay low. And this is an example, or a good example of one of these journals is the Journal of Critical Study of Communication and Disability, which Adelphi University Libraries proudly publishes. There's no fee to read and no fee to publish. Moving on to gold. Gold is one of the most popular nowadays out there. It simply means fully open at the time of publication. So a gold journal is going to be fully open. There are going to be no articles or content in there. They're going to be behind paywalls. But in order to publish in that journal, every author is going to have to pay or find funding to pay an article processing charge, or APC. Now, those article processing charges for a fully open journal are eligible for funding from the Provost Fund for Scholarly Support, and we'll be talking about that at the end of the presentation. And then we move on to hybrid journals, which constitutes still the largest segment of open access publishing. And part of that increase in hybrid open access has been the result of the funding models that were put in place about 5 years ago now, in 2020, that directed a lot of funder dollars to support the open access business model via APCs. However, this is an incredibly inequitable model when it comes to publishing, because only those universities or authors who have sufficient funding are able to publish. Sometimes the APC can be waived or is completely removed for scholars from certain countries who are scholars who can apply to show need. And I will say that, increasingly we are encouraging our authors to apply for any offer of waiver or discount, and seeing a better than historic, better than in the past response rate. And when we've asked for discounts, we've actually occasionally gotten entire waivers. So we always encourage authors to write and to ask and see what can be done, especially if the APC is above the $2,000 cap that we'll be describing later. There's a good chance that, or there's at least some chance that the publisher will work with you to lower that APC to be covered by our OA fund. And now we move on to something that is free for you, free and ideally, in terms of the federal government and funders, they're viewing it as a free option, is going through your institutional repository. And the scenario here would be that the author's accepted manuscript, formerly known as the postprint, that is the version after peer review, that is going to the publisher to get typeset and everything. That's the author's accepted manuscript, and that you retain the copyright to or in, and you are able to, according to various funder mandates, you should be allowed to post that version of your article into an institutional repository, making it open access. The question becomes, based upon the publisher policies, when you can do that. The government wants funders and publishers to do that as soon as the version of record, as soon as the version of record is published. The preprint or accepted manuscript should also be published. We could talk more about that later on as well. And then there's something called, that I'll call, conditional open access. And this is wherein there's a program that is reliant upon subscriptions by libraries, which almost pledge, if you will, to subscribe to these certain list of journals. And once a certain subscription amount has been reached, that collection goes open for the world. And so until that amount is reached, those libraries that are subscribing, for example, get full access, as well as some other advantages. But the idea is that we are using library budgets and subscription dollars, which are already allocated, to actually open up content for the world, and do that in ways that don't cost extra or lead to extra dollars going to publishers. And so Subscribe to Open is one of the examples of the sometimes referred to as schemes, funding schemes. that are out there, and we have seen Adelphi authors starting to take advantage of this. And again, it doesn't guarantee that your work is going to be open access, but it does um, give it a chance of becoming open access. And depending on the funding available, it might be your best bet. Something like this model is also in use for open access books or monographs. It's called Direct to Open. It's run by MIT, and there are others as well, but University of Michigan, University of California. Unfortunately, some of them are only applicable for faculty within those university systems or who have external funding. But they are options to consider, and we can certainly discuss them more if you'd like. Okay, so now we're moving on to the trends in open access and scholarly publishing, and these are the four things that I had mentioned earlier. The first and most relevant, arguably, is predatory journals and publishers. We'll talk about some of their key characteristics and why special issues are becoming a problem. If I can just get this out there in advance, if you get an unsolicited email inviting you to submit your work to a journal, consider it spam. It should go into your spam folder unless you know that author, unless you know that editor and can, like personally. I would strongly recommend you reject any unsolicited offers that you get. We could talk more about why in a second. The rising APCs, hybrids are still pricier than fully open access journals, which is just sort of counterintuitive for the right reason, which is that if they're hybrid, they're already getting dollars from subscription, so there really shouldn't be more of a cost for going hybrid as opposed to fully OA. And we'll see some new ways that publishers are attempting to capture more dollars from researchers, especially if they're not well versed in these policies. Researcher resistance, editors protesting high APCs and checking their APC for a journal before they agree to review for that journal. And increased reliance on preprints. And we'll be looking at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, their recent OA refresh, and the U.S. public access policy that remains in place for explainable but surprising reasons all the same. And so predatory journals are becoming exponentially bigger problem because of the funding models that were written into place about 5 to 10 years ago. And so there are actually problems with reporting predatory journals or creating websites like the one you're looking at on your screen right now, which I strongly recommend, predatoryjournals.org, because if you put up a journal like this, you can get sued by the publishers of those journals who disagree with your assessment of the journal being predatory. And therefore, this site is all anonymous. It's all academics who have remained anonymous so that they would not get sued. However, my argument about this website is that it is the same content that I would offer. It's the same content that you would find in any of the other articles that are written by authors who do share their names, are not. These are often junior scholars who are writing these articles and doing these assessments because they are the most at risk often of being taken advantage of by predatory journals because they face the strongest demands to publish and publish quickly. And that's why one of the first things we see, whether you're looking at definitions here or elsewhere, for a predatory journal are accepting articles quickly. And so anytime you see a boast about a quick peer review time, be skeptical, okay? It's not that you shouldn't want a shorter peer review time, it's what goes into getting you that shorter peer review time that needs to be analyzed. If it's a matter of, a change that they made to their system wherein they're paying reviewers or something like that, if that is, the case, then, they might have a reason for being able to turn around peer review so quickly. But in and of itself, it should be a red flag, as should getting an email soliciting your contribution to a given journal. And so aggressively campaigning for academics to submit articles or serve on editorial boards is another red flag. as are open access journals that mimic the name or website style of more established journals. And this is something we frequently see. Andie and I, in reviewing, journals that faculty ask us about, sometimes we will think we're evaluating one journal and it's actually a different journal because they've used almost the exact same name, with a slight difference in A instead of a the or something like that. And it's done intentionally to confuse us. So we can't do the kind of analysis and vetting that we want to do to ensure that our faculty are all publishing in non-predatory journals. And one of the things that drives me crazy is them boasting about being indexed on something like ResearchGate or Google Scholar. Those are not indexes. Okay, ResearchGate is actually illegal. You can add anyone can add stuff there. Google Scholar is not an index. It's a scholarly search engine. It crawls things. It crawls scholarly works. It doesn't mean that scholarly works is indexed by Google Scholar. To be indexed by something means to be vetted and added to an index like Web of Science or Scopus. It also means that you can get de-indexed, which happens, and we can talk more about that with certain OA publishers that are trying to ramp up their publication numbers to increase profits and becoming paper mills in the process. So one good case study that the predatoryjournals.org offers is on MDPI, which has become the largest open access publisher fairly quickly. And one of the main reasons why they have been able to achieve that market dominance is illustrated on the graphic on your screen, which if you look at what the red dots signify, each red dot equals 200 articles appearing in a quote unquote special issue. And the reason why we have seen special issues spike among predatory or predatory adjacent publishers is because special issues are guest edited by individuals who are thrilled at the chance of being invited to edit a special issue of a journal, because that normally signifies that you are a major mover in the field and that you can get other people to submit on that specific topic. And knowing this, predatory publishers utilize unsuspecting faculty to be editors and solicit manuscripts from their colleagues, not knowing that they are not going to be given the rigorous peer review. They're not going to be given the same level of profile once published. They're not going to be indexed in these places. And that, whatever they do contribute is likely just to be lost in this tidal wave of open access publishing that MDPI has chosen to follow. This does not mean that there are not good, strong, valuable articles published in MDPI journals. Okay, some of our own faculty publish great work there. However, it means that you have to be extremely critical and of all MDPI journals and make sure that you are only submitting to those which have a good name in the field, which have editors and editorial boards and peer reviewers that you know and respect and can verify. And so, there are lots and lots of brand new MDPI journals or lots of journals that rely heavily on special issues, and those are the ones you want to avoid. So it's not just a matter of saying, oh, MDPI, there's a predatory publisher, so we're not going to publish in any MDPI journals. It's getting more complicated than that. However, if you do have the option, I would recommend, going with a more established publisher, whether it be a university press, Johns Hopkins, Cambridge, Oxford, or it be one of the commercial publishers, Elsevier, Springer Nature, Taylor and Francis, Wiley, etc. Okay, we'll talk more about how to do that in a minute. And so one of the tools out there, in addition to doing your due diligence or emailing me to ask about a journal for eligibility or predatory purposes, is to the very popular, it's been around a long time, Think, Check, Submit. It's a great way to figure out which journals are the best ones in your field. And it is free and it is very easy to utilize. I strongly recommend it. Okay, so now we're moving on to the current updates on article processing charges. And so, one of the things that is a problem with APCs is that they are increasing faster than the rate of inflation, even though inflation is increasing at a faster rate than the rate of inflation these days. So, the fully open access APC prices have risen by around 6.5% this year. But that's better than the 9.5% which they increased at last year. The hybrid APCs are continuing to increase at 3%, which is a little bit lower than 4.2%. All of these are rates that are at or higher than inflation, and we're seeing similar rates. We see similar rates, and Sandy can speak to this with regard to annual increases in our subscription pricing. We don't see 0, 1, 2. We see 3, 4, 5, 6 frequently. The maximum APC for a fully open journal remains $8,900, if you can believe that. But even more hard to believe is the maximum APC for a hybrid journal, which means that they are still getting subscription dollars, but on top of that, they are asking for APCs to make their content open access. And this has risen $400 from last year. I'm guessing that is a Nature journal. We've seen big jumps last year, driven by high inflation, but after a while, these do return back to normal. And the underlying trends that we've been observing for almost a decade now are continuing. There are about 2.6 times more hybrid journals than there are fully open access ones. But that is actually, fully open is actually catching up a bit, because that's down 2.9 from 2.9 a year ago. And on average, fully open prices are only 64% of those for hybrid journals. Again, that's APCs for fully open journals, which do not charge subscription fees, are 64% lower on average than the APCs for hybrid journals. This is just one of the many reasons that the APC fund operated by the Provost's office only supports fully open access journals. They're the ones who really need the money. They're the ones who are making the best effort at going fully open, and they should be receiving our dollars. They're also making it more advantageous to receive our dollars because they are recognizing the pressures on our dollars and are keeping their costs low and transparent. Around 31% of the sample of fully open journals charge no APCs, no article processing charges. Those are the diamond journals that I mentioned earlier. And very importantly, sorry, I've been talking a lot this week, sorry. Price rises vary significantly by discipline. And this is true within academia, within library land, generally speaking. Arts and humanities and social sciences have seen particularly large average increases, especially in fully open access journal prices. That is often having to do with the lack of industry funding and grant writing that occurs, the imbalance between social sciences, arts and humanities versus natural sciences and some of the other social sciences like psychology. And so it's something to pay attention to as we think about supporting our faculty in their open access publishing. And so one of the things that we're going to be seeing more of is more preprints. This archive is an example of a preprint server that's been around for a very long time. It's run by Cornell University Press. Many of you have probably already encountered it. As you can see on the right-hand side, there are links and connections to Google Scholar and Semantic Scholar. Semantic Scholar is an example of a database that is utilizing AI and is plugged into various other AI tools and functionalities in beta. But what I wanted to show you here was that this article talks about, the revenue that 6 of the major publishers have seen since 2019. As you can see, they're doing quite well. NDPI is now the largest, most revenue, makes the most money on open access, which is surprising if you can look at how steep their increase is. That steepness of that curve is a result of the steepness of the increase in special issues that we saw and just the publishing volume. But you could see that Elsevier, good old Elsevier, is doing their best to keep up here, and they are just under $600 million in APC revenue during that time period. But you can see the other ones as well. Frontiers has been going down. Frontiers is fully open. NDPI is fully open. PLOS is fully open. The other ones are hybrid. And we can see in this slide a breakdown of how the different hybrid versus gold journals break down across the different years. So we're seeing, of course, the general increase of revenue by the increase of just the number of articles and APCs that have been paid. But you can also see that, for example, the gold, MDPI, and Elsevier are the biggest chunks, right? So those are fully open access to read, and all content within them is fully open access. There's nothing that's behind a paywall. But the next groups we see are Elsevier, or hybrid, excuse me, Elsevier, and then we see Springer Nature Gold, then we see Springer Nature Hybrid, and we don't, up here, way up here, we see Frontiers and PLOS, the fully open ones. So it's interesting to me that NDPI is here and the other fully open ones are here. Again, I think that signals they're sort of trying to take advantage of a business model that can be taken advantage of, and it's an increasing need to pay attention to their individual journals. So now we're unfortunately moving into the section where we look at the money grabs. And ACS is the example that I'm going with today because it was talked about in a Harvard webinar on open access policies that I attended earlier this week. And so as a means of getting around the federal government's interest in no longer funding article processing charges, but encouraging scholars to go green open access, which is technically free, right? They own the copyright to their author accepted manuscript. They can freely put it into an institutional repository like PubMed Central or scholarly works at Adelphi, be given a DOI and everything, and that's all free, and that's why the federal government is going with it. However, ACS offers you the power of choice. And so what they're offering you is this article development charge, or ADC, for zero embargo green open access. So what they're saying is that if you give us, let's see, if you give us, wait, where's the price? I feel like that's important. $2,500. Sorry, I should lead with that. $2,500 for this, the right to deposit your own copywritten work into your own institutional repository. What you're basically paying here for is for them to remove the line in their contract that talks about a 12-month embargo. And Harvard made the point that no one has been sued. They have never gotten a takedown notice, and none of their faculty have been, gotten a takedown notice or gotten into problems, because Harvard has an institutional policy that says that they retain the right in the author's accepted manuscript to deposit that manuscript at the time of publication without an embargo. And that's what they do. And so this is an example of them trying to basically convince researchers, sort of unsuspecting researchers, that they don't have these rights and that this is actually a valuable service that's being provided. Under the cost breakdown, you'll notice that peer review is not mentioned. Peer review management and infrastructure is mentioned, right? And so what they mean there is, for example, OJS is the platform that we use to run our Diamond Open Access Journal, and it costs $1,500 a year. So that cost is being passed on to the scholar at an exorbitant markup, right? It costs a year, for a year, it's $1,500, and they're asking for $2,500, a flat fee of $2,500 to take advantage of a right that you legally have. And so they are, coming up with lots of reasons for this. This is only going to be applicable if this and if that and stuff like that. But it's really just a money grab. And the point that Harvard made is that it is not true that at present the ADC will be covered like an APC by U.S. federally funded grants. It's no longer even true that APCs are necessarily going to be acceptable being written into federal grants, because we're seeing funders move away from supporting APCs. And so the best example of that is with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Their open access policy refresh for 2025 no longer supports paying scholars or funding scholars to offset the cost of paying article processing charges to journals to publish their work. They have spent the last 10 years supporting this work and realized that they are simply paying money giving money to publishers when they could just be supporting preprints like many other segments of the scholarly community, and doing that for free, free to the cost of the scholar, because we already pay for our institutional repository quite a bit. And so, the grantee guide for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation makes this very easy in terms of, fulfilling their requirements. You have to acknowledge the foundation. You have to post a preprint. That preprint needs to have a CC BY license on it, and the data, it has to have a data availability statement. And the data can also be made available through Scholarly Works or an open repository. Okay. I want to go back a second because I skipped this slide, which is researcher resistance to the spike in APCs and the additional charges. This is an example from LinkedIn of a scholar who posted his response to a request from Nature Publishing Group to do a peer review, to serve as a peer reviewer for them. And as you can see, that he points out that Nature charges an outrageous, basically $7,000 in US dollars APC, and that they funnel the papers that don't make it into their top tier journals into lesser tier journals. And that's an exploitive way of taking advantage of early career researchers who are facing the pressure to publish on a timeline and to do so in journals that are prestigious. And so this scholar explains how he preferentially reviews for Diamond open access journals that are free to read and publish in. So I offer this as an example of what some faculty members are, and many others actually, are doing in terms of sort of attempting to reform the system by being more judicious about where they donate their labor, and where they submit their articles, the journals that the editorial boards that serve on. I know that some Adelphi faculty have actually, been editors on journals that have switched publishers because the APCs that were charged by the other publisher, the former publisher, were just simply too high, and other publishers offered a lower APC, and so there was no reason not to go with them. And so that resistance is, seeing some benefits, but it more speaks to the inequity of APCs and the reason why the community, the government, funders are going more to a preprint model. And so now we're looking at the options for Adelphi faculty members, and these are the three main ones. So if you were looking to publish in a journal that charges an APC, and is fully open, you can apply for up to $2,000 in funding from the Provost's APC fund. Again, that's for journals that are fully open, that charge no subscription fees. They're the ones that need the money the most. They're the ones that charge lower APCs. And $2,000 is actually right around the average, or slightly above the average for open access or fully open access journal article processing charges. It's really, really important for you to check the journal first before you submit. What I mean is not just check whether it's predatory or not, but check whether or not, if your article is accepted, you would be able to get funding to make it open. Because if that is your priority, you really want to check the journal first. And that's when you can also email me to ask about a journal. The other way to publish in a hybrid journal, the way to publish in a hybrid journal is to go through one of our open access agreements. And we have them with Springer and Elsevier and a few others. Sorry. And those are, as many of you know, the information is up on our web pages, available for all. And it means that if you select one of the journals that are covered, and there are thousands covered by these agreements, that there's no charge to you to make the article open access. As long as you are the corresponding author and you're using your Adelphi email address, the system will recognize you as being included within one of our open access agreements. We will, behind the scenes, get a little notification that a faculty member is trying to take advantage of that agreement, and we will just approve that once we double check that you are still at Adelphi or at Adelphi, and so the last option for you is the one that is the one I'm going to have been talking about most, arguably, is green open access, preprint open access. Author accepted manuscripts going into scholarly works or other repositories being given a DOI and therefore being freely available online. Scholarly works meets the repository requirements for open data mandates and other sorts of open access mandates. And if you have any questions about that, we're always happy to talk about the technical basis and the functionalities of the repository to make sure that they're a good fit. But if Scholarly Works isn't a good fit, there are other open access repositories out there that can work and do the same job. But either way, you're going to see your work get a DOI, and it's going to be crawled by Google Scholar, and therefore it's going to be discoverable online. And so it really does make a whole heck of a lot of sense to take more advantage of repositories, whether they be ours or others. And I could say that one of the biggest hurdles to the natural sciences, to the humanities and others taking advantage of that, is simply a different conception of prestige, a different conception of how preprints reflect on the author or the work. In the scientific community, in the hard sciences, computer science, physics, preprints have been around for a very long time and are just part of the culture. But attempting to convince a humanities professor to post their author-accepted manuscript online is a harder sell. And so we can talk more about why that might be. But I am, I am optimistic that preprints and author-accepted manuscripts are going to see a higher uptake among humanities and social sciences for the benefit of all. And so I want to conclude by offering these. Everything I've talked about pretty much especially in terms of Adelphi support, is already up online on our website, on our library guides. And so these are links to individual pages within our guides, or, for example, the financial scholarly support for Adelphi for article processing charges. That's a link to the internet page where you can get the latest specifics about eligibility. And then finally, I thank you for attending. I thank you for your attention. Andie, Sandy, and I would love to field any questions you may have. And at this point, I will stop recording. Oh, sorry, that wasn't the stop recording. That was the stop sharing. I will stop recording now.